We move on from California. We're heading to Vegas, baby. We'll give you a preview of that Summer League session and then update you on some free agency signings that we haven't done quite yet. We go into detail on a Friday today, Locked On Hornets.
You are Locked On Hornets, your daily Charlotte Hornets podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
In a minute, cuz we live.
It's Locked On Hornets, part of the Locked On Podcast Network. It's your team every day. Thanks for making us your first listen. We're free and available anywhere you get your pods, and that includes YouTube. There's Doug Branson. He's on his Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com, on Twitter, at Doug Branson, LOH, and you can also text him when you find his subtext info on his Substack. And then you can send him messages berating him with Hornets thoughts, asking him all sorts of stuff. I'm Walker Mail. Listen to me, WFNZ, every weekday from 12 to 3 p.m., Sports Radio 92.7 FM. So we move on from the Classic. We're going to Vegas. There is a game tomorrow night, I believe against the Knicks. It's the first game that they'll play. So when they play the Knicks in Summer League in Vegas, I should say, for the first time, and then we'll see exactly when Salaun is in the fold. Brandon Miller, is he going to play a couple of games? What are we looking at here with the big storylines as we go into Las Vegas, Doug?
Vegas, baby. I think the big storyline is obviously the guy that we haven't seen yet, the guy that was a 6th overall pick, that there are a lot of question marks about. How big of a project is Tidjane Salaun? We are going to get some kind of answer to that question. We didn't get it in the California Classic because of an injury to his knee, a laceration to the knee. Ouch. But he will be playing. We'll get to see. Where does he play? Does he play power forward? Is he going to play some center minutes? It's a little smaller there in Summer League, so there's some room to kind of maneuver there. But can he shoot? Can he rebound? What's the deal with Tidjane Salaun? That's what I'll be watching for.
We had Nada on Wes and Walker yesterday. He was in for an hour, and he actually pushed back on the idea on Salaun spending a lot of time in Greensboro, that he'll actually get a decent amount of time in the big leagues as soon as year one, despite being such a raw prospect. And, I can understand that thinking. I don't think that's going to happen as much, but I can understand that thinking with the lack of power forwards on this squad, the fact that you do need some depth in the front court and not even just center anymore. But look, JT Thor, we'll get to him too. He's no longer on the team, but it's like you are very slim. I know, I'm sorry. But you don't have a lot of weight.
Just wait. Why do you have to hit me in the face with that right now, with Thor's hammer? Why do you have to hit me in the face this early?
Yeah, we'll keep it positive. We'll go with Salaun. So maybe Salaun does see the floor quite a bit this year. But, man, if so, a nice Summer League session will go a long way into earning him more minutes sooner, until we have to wait until the second half of the season.
So I think you're right structurally that the roster would lend itself to finding him playing time right now, although I will say there is a lot of time. The organization previous to this regime would love to act late on roster additions. So I don't know if that's going to be the same thing here. They've got a spot or two open. They've got some money, but they could fill, a forward spot, and then structurally it wouldn't make a lot of sense for him to get playing time. But I think this Summer League is going to be so important to understanding where he is, and for both for the team and I think for fans to take a look as well. And they'll have a camp to make that assessment too. So I think that this is a question that is almost impossible to answer right now. We've got to see him against some fringe NBA level competition to say okay, how ready is he? Because if he's not, it's not the end of the world. It's not the end of the world if he looks out of his depth in this summer. It just means that, yes, he's going to have to spend some time in Greensboro before he makes the trip up. And that would be best for him if that's the case.
Salaun is storyline number 1. Brandon Miller seems storyline number 2. Do you think we get him for more than 2 games?
I don't think so. Certainly could. The guy loves to hoop. He wants to hoop. It's not necessarily about him being coached by Charles Lee, because Charles Lee's not the coach. Josh Longstaff is going to be the coach here, taking over for Lee after the California Classic. But just a chance to get to play with some other young players, the chance to hoop. I think it's exciting, but I don't think he'll spend more than a couple tune-up games. And I just want to see what he's been working on. I wonder, I'm curious if Brandon Miller is going to approach games 1 and 2 as like opportunities to dominate and show like, hey, I can score, 20, 30 points in a summer league. Or is he going to take those opportunities to facilitate for others and show some things off that he's been working on? Particularly, I would love to see, how active he is on the defensive end of the floor, because I think they've, in that camp pre-California Classic, they've obviously made that a priority. I think it's going to be something that's talked about over and over and over again. And he was, like, if you look at the defensive ratings according to Dunks and Threes for last season, Brandon Miller was not at the top of this team. I mean, he does have some work to do defensively. For sure. So I'll be watching him more probably on the defensive end of the floor than I will on the offensive end of the floor.
No, I think that's a good point. And so you're right. You asked the question, what has he been working on? I got to thinking about it, even though it goes both ways. Sometimes time feels like it moves so fast. The other times it feels like it moves so slow. It doesn't feel like it's been that long since we've seen Brandon Miller. And so I'm looking up his game log here. In fact, the last time we saw him on an NBA court, it was exactly 3 months ago. April 12th, we got to see him play against the Celtics. That was his last game. They got destroyed, 131-98. But that was the last game we saw from Brandon Miller. So it was 3 months ago, Doug. Not that long. And that's the case when you're one of these young guys. Even if you are as good as Brandon, you are going to dabble in the summer league. And then next year, Brandon's going to be too good to come back. If you are still struggling to make an NBA roster, or you still need to work some things out, that's when you're the Bryce McGowens of the world, the JT Thors of the world, and you go back for a third summer league session. But there's a lot of basketball and not a lot of breaks, especially now that here we are going through the Olympics and Brandon is practicing against Team USA, playing for the U.S. Select Team. So Brandon has not had a lot of off time. Great thing for him is that he's young. His body can probably absorb that a little better, although you're not talking about a big rest for Brandon. So then he gets done here. We're talking at the end of July, you're done. August, September, October, we're ramping it up again. So not a lot of rest. Is there any reason to worry? I mean, it feels like just young NBA players deal with that. I don't know if that means it's the right thing for the scheduling of these guys, but NBA players, they deal with it. They have rehab, coaches, training staff. Hopefully they're looking out for the best interest of these dudes, and everything's going to be okay.
Yeah, if there was a serious injury last season, I would totally be concerned. But there was. I mean, there were a few minor, dings that he took, and he came right back. So I'm not super concerned about that at all. I think, particularly for young players, it's important that they play, that they learn, that they soak up every opportunity to get better. And the fact that Brandon is willing to do that, because, look, I think, after his rookie season, I think if Brandon Miller wanted to throw his weight around as a number 2 overall pick and just make some sort of like, hey, I don't know if I've been doing a lot. I'm doing team select. I don't know if I need to play in these games. I think there was probably room for him to do that, but he wants to hoop.
Yeah, and that would be a bad sign if he turned down U.S.
That's what you're right. That's what I'm saying. This is great.
We'd be, if he turned that down, we'd be like, wait a minute, this isn't a good sign. But he didn't. I never expect that from Brandon. I think that was evident as soon as we got to see him hit the NBA court. Coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
There's one more storyline that I think we have to really keep our eyes on.
There you go. One more Summer League preview storyline, at least Vegas preview storyline. Plus, then we'll get to Bryce McGowens. Got some news on his future yesterday from Woj. How about Bryce getting a Woj bomb? That's how you know you made it. Woj bomb.
I hope he just saves that clipping somewhere. It is. I think it's a badge of honor.
Get to some more free agency updates here coming up next. Locked On Hornets. This episode is brought to you by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, and patience. The formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. eBay Motors has everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, Husker do's, Husker don'ts. Yeah, maybe scratch the last 2 parts. But there is plenty more. Whether you're into speed, power, or style, eBay Motors has you covered. With over 122 million parts for your number 1 ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay Guaranteed Fit, Your part is guaranteed to fit your ride every time, or you get your money back. Because with eBay Motors, you're burning rubber, not cash. With all the parts you need, at the prices you want, it's easy to make your car the MVP and bring home huge wins. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay Guaranteed Fit only available to U.S. customers. More Locked On Hornets ahead.
You're telling me.
We got some Bryce McGowens news. It's been an interesting summer for Bryce, who comes in as a pretty tantalizing late pick for the Hornets. Got some starts with the Hornets, would also go to the bench, DNP CDs. There was a lot of roles for Bryce to try to figure out. Eventually, with the new regime, they decided to waive him, gave him the option to still play in Summer League, and honestly made the most of it. Had a 20-point game where you could make the argument that it wasn't actually a very good contest against Team China. You could make the argument that it was very good. Then he goes for 29 points in the California Classic Championship, as we'll call it, even though the Warriors were awarded this faux trophy.
What?
Fofie. It's a Fofie. That's what they got.
Unbelievable.
Fofie. So Bryce McGowens goes for 29, hits clutch shots, gets picked up by the Trailblazers. According to Adrian Wojnarowski, signs a two-way deal with the Trailblazers. Good for him. Like, totally worth the flyer from some team, and it just kind of ran its course here with Charlotte. But if I was another team, like, I would be totally interested in putting this guy in the system and seeing how it all works out. And if it doesn't, fine. But again, just like I thought with JT Thor, who got released as well.
Okay,
Sorry.
Again, we're not ready for that conversation. I'm not ready emotionally for that conversation. I will be ready for it in the third segment. You've done it in the first segment. Now in the second segment. Why, take care of my feelings, please. I'm in mourning. Mourn Thor.
A worthwhile experiment with Bryce McGowens comes to an end.
So I have a correction to issue. I will get to my final storyline of the Summer League just a second.
Sorry.
In just a second. That's okay. I do have a correction to file because we were talking about two-way slots and who would fill the two-way slots, and we weren't sure if the Hornets had filled one of the two-way slots. They have, and that was KJ Simpson. Their recent second-round pick was signed to a two-way deal right before the California Classic. So they have two-way slots, we think. Maybe Leaky Black already has one. We're not kind of sure about that. But maybe
he played on it last year. You could change it if you wanted to.
Yeah, right. And so they have two, so limited spots. Bryce McGowens, a draft pick of a previous regime. I think that's an interesting question. Like, if Mitch Kupchak were still in charge, would Bryce McGowens move from that guaranteed money to one of those two-way deals? I tend to think yes, because like Mitch was almost to a fault loyal to some of these draft picks that he made and wanting to see them develop. And so I think he would be, but different front office now. They're reevaluating everything, and Bryce goes despite a strong Summer League. And I think, anytime you're drafted, particularly second-round picks, I think you're at the mercy of all the stuff that's happening around. Are there injuries that allow you an opportunity? Does the roster, when you're drafted, represent the roster, 2-3 years down the line when decisions have to be made? I think the environment around Bryce, the ground shifted under him, and I think going to Portland is going to be a much better situation where they actually there's going to be room for him there to do something where he would not have gotten that opportunity even under a two-way contract for Charlotte. So I think it's the best thing for him. And honestly, there are some shooting bigs on this roster that I think are more of a pressing need for the Hornets to develop in Mo Gee and Jake Stevens if they decide to use one of those two ways on either of those guys. More important to what they need than whatever Bryce can do.
Played a lot of games in 2 years for the Hornets, Doug. As a guy that gets drafted in so late, it was late first or early second, right? One of the two. But Bryce played 59 games in 46 games his rookie year. Started 7 of them. Played in 59 games this past season. Started 14 of them. Did improve field goal percentage. 3-point percentage basically stayed the exact same on the exact same makes on the exact same volume. It felt like it anyway. Points per game was at about 5, but a lot of experience, and it just didn't go. He didn't improve, I guess, as much as we would want him. And there are a bunch of different roles as to why he's starting, not playing, getting a little bit of playing time off of the bench with all of the injuries, just trying to find something until you go to the trade deadline, right? Where then you bring in Trey Mann, you bring in Micic, you bring in Seth Curry, at least for a little while before he gets hurt. All the opportunity, it dries up. no more. And eventually you fall yourself out of the rotation.
And I mean, it's a second round pick. So those don't often stay with any team. But, the Charlotte Hornets, other than Cody Martin stands alone as this second round pick that hangs around with the organization. So this is not unusual. So are you ready for? So anyway, thank you, Bryce, for all of your contributions. You sort of get this Dwayne Bacon. There's a litany of, I think, wings.
I thought of him
Hornets.
too. No, I thought about him too because he starts his first game ever. Remember, Nick Batum's hurt. Dwayne Bacon, as a second round pick, starts his first ever game. I thought about him as well.
It's not as if these guys don't get their chance with Charlotte. Mm-hmm. And so you watch a player and you hope that they pop, and if they don't, then they get to go to another organization where maybe they get a different opportunity. You get some different coaches. That's what I'm saying, man. He might find a coach in Portland, and we might be talking about Bryce McGowens. And it doesn't necessarily mean that the Hornets did anything wrong or that Portland did anything like particularly right. It's just sometimes guys go to different situations and it works out. That's how it works. And hopefully what I would like this front office to do that I don't think the previous front office was really good at is be the opposite end of that. Go out to other teams and find players that you feel like, hey, maybe they didn't fit in this situation, but if they get into our Hornets DNA, they're going to pop. That's what good organizations do. I think that they're going to be, Mo Gee is a good example of a guy that fell out of the Raptors organization and now might have an opportunity, if he didn't horribly injure his ankle, might have an opportunity to pop for Charlotte. So there's that. The other storyline that I have is Nick Smith Jr. did not shoot well at all at the California Classic and shot a lot and didn't shoot very well. I think that it's going, even if he had a great summer league, he's fighting an uphill battle to carve out a strong place in this rotation. But if he continues to struggle in Vegas, I think some major questions will start to pop up about his future with the organization.
Okay, you ready to move on? Any other preview thoughts?
Well, I sort of mentioned this, but I would keep watching Jake Stevens, keep watching Mo Gee, these centers that they've brought in. If Mo is good to go, if Mo can go, then I'm interested to see if they can continue to shoot, continue to be active. Jake Stevens in particular, I was the first on Jake Stevens Island. You cannot claim it. I have sole copyright over Jake Stevens Island. I think he's a physical rebounder. I think he can shoot the lights out for sure. I want to see him in more pick and pop opportunities. Hopefully they'll get some of those going for him. But I'm excited to see if they can find someone to fill this third spot in the center rotation. The guy can actually shoot. And I think both of these guys present that opportunity.
Well, and by the way, as long as we're doing the two-way combo, with Bryce being on both of our list as a guy that probably deserved a two-way contract based on how he played, no longer there. So you're not sweating as much if you're one of these other guys. Leaky, you're not sweating as much because you already have it, even though it's not a guarantee that you're going to be on that contract next year. And then Mo Gee, Jake Stevens, maybe you just hand them out to a couple of big guys, already having a guard in your second round pick, taking up one of those two-way contracts. So that's another thing that Bryce McGowens' absence does do for the Hornets on part of just trying to fill out the two ways.
And it's actually important. It's actually important that they get this right, because we saw Nathan Mensah get minutes last season. We saw Marquise Bolden get minutes. And with all due respect to those guys, they were not ready for that assignment. And it hurt. Look, they came in at points when the Hornets were out of it, so it wasn't like it mattered to the standings. But I think so much of player development, and that if that's what this organization is interested in, developing the young talent that they have, so much of that is, can you be functional as a basketball team out there? Not necessarily win the game, but can you be functional? And you couldn't do that with those players at the center position. They've got to find some guys that if they do, get horribly injured, that they've got somewhere to go.
All right, coming up next on the Locked On Hornets podcast.
Go to sleep on the Hornets just yet.
We'll get to the updates and have the conversation Doug doesn't want to have. I tried to bring it up in the first and the second segment, but it's time. You got to do it. Just have to attack the combo and then be a better man on the other side because of it. That's still to come. Locked On Hornets.
I don't want to.
This episode is brought to you by BetterHelp. Comparison is the thief of joy, and it's easy to envy other people's lives. It might look like they have it all together on their Instagram or whatever social media profile you're looking at, but in reality, they probably don't. Therapy can help you focus on what you want instead of what others have, so you can start living your best life. If you're thinking of starting therapy, give BetterHelp a try. It's entirely online, designed to be convenient, flexible, and suited to your schedule. Just fill out a brief questionnaire to get matched with a licensed therapist, and then you can switch therapists anytime for no additional charge. Stop comparing, start focusing with BetterHelp. Visit BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA today to get 10% off your first month. That's BetterHelp, H-E-L-P, BetterHelp.com/LockedOnNBA. More Locked On Hornets ahead. It's time, Doug. Hornets PR, June 28th. They give you this tweet. The Hornets have declined the team option on forward JT Thor, making him an unrestricted free agent. In 3 seasons with Charlotte, Thor averaged 3.2 points and 2.1 rebounds in 12.2 minutes per game in 165 contests. Your thoughts on the more Thor movement coming to an end?
Well, endings are always difficult. And I think you have to remember the good times. The Thorner 3, Thor's hammer.
Who can forget?
Dropping down. The few minutes in which it looked like he could defend at an NBA level. That's what you have to hold on to. And that's what I hold on to. The T-shirt that I made. Mm-hmm. Rod being the one person that bought it.
And then wearing it on the show. You're a good man, Rod. You're a good man.
That's what I'll remember. Listen, another second-round pick. We just talked about Bryce McGowens. Another second-round pick that you were hopeful for. I think what makes Bryce, because I think it is fair to think like second-round pick falling out of an organization, that's pretty normal. I think what makes Thor and McGowens both a little bit more difficult to swallow is that those were both picks that you traded up to get. And you didn't lose a lot in those trades. It's not about the assets that you lost to trade up. It's about this idea that the organization said, I'm going to trade something to move up because I'm confident that this guy is going to work. And they tended to be at the top of the second round. So like that's what makes it a little bit difficult. But yeah, look, I believed in Thor and Clifford believed in Thor, and it just didn't work out. He just did not improve the things like ball handling, like passing. I've been using this word a lot, functional. He was durable when he was hitting threes, like late in the season. You could stand to have him on the floor, but it was difficult to be functional while he was out there.
Well, and Nick Smith Jr. will I not because they traded up to get him. I think he'll fall along the same lines. To me, the thing that makes it harder to see Bryce and JT go, and it's not, crazy hard, but hey, there was some flashes there. It's because they would show some stuff. It felt like there was something there where they should be picked up by another NBA team just to figure something out. With JT Thor, I don't know if this eases the pain, but actually it kind of house money, because the reason they got that JT Thor selection was because they traded for Mason Plumlee to absorb his contract because the Pistons didn't want him anymore. So the Pistons just added the 37th overall selection. JT was getting a lot of buzz as a potential first rounder. And lots of NBA draft pundits were like, hey, check out this JT Thor kid. Really young. I believe the youngest player in the draft, if I'm not mistaken. Really does have a high ceiling, could hit some threes, real athletic, whatever. So I think value-wise in that draft with James Bouknight and Kai Jones, felt like JT Thor was the best value. And what's crazy, Thor lasts longer on the team than James Bouknight and Kai Jones, your first 2 picks and 2 first-round selections. So he's gone. That's what makes it hurt a little bit. Bryce showed some stuff. And I think Nick Smith Jr. will kind of be in this category as well, because this is somebody that had the best three-point shooting percentage among all the rookies that got some contests. If it doesn't work out for him, I'll put him in that category where Bryce and JT are.
Yeah, Nick Smith Jr., they actually, in a weird way, they traded down to get him because, it
a year-long process to go get him. Yeah.
Yeah, it could have been a 13th pick in the previous draft. Instead, they trade with Denver all the way and for the next draft, and then that ends up being the Nick Smith Jr. pick. But Nick Smith Jr. does have one thing going for him versus Thor and McGowens, which is like he has a thing that he can do, which is shoot the basketball. Now, he hasn't done it yet in this summer league. Mm-hmm. That's why I think it is the thing to watch for. more than anything. And I know he's focusing on the defensive end, and I think the coaching staff wants to see him contribute more on the defensive end. But look, if he forgets how to shoot, then he's not going to play. But he does have a thing that is valuable, particularly to this team. I mean, they need shooting. So I think he's got that going for him. But Thor didn't have that thing consistently enough to make up for the other stuff, which is like he couldn't handle the basketball. He was not a great passer. So there were some things that made it difficult for him to play.
A couple of other updates, by the way. Reggie Jackson deal, that involved, the Reggie Jackson deal and the Josh Green deal, that turns into a 6-team trade, right?
It's like a Voltron or like the Power Rangers, when they all came together for the Megazord. Like this trade turned into the Megazord trade. 6 teams.
6 teams, and Doug, you came across the nugget that said that was the first time that's ever happened in the NBA.
It surprises me. I mean, I guess 6 does sound a lot. You hear like 3-team trade, 4-team trade. You definitely hear often. I guess 6-team trade. I guess it's never happened before. That's strange, but the Hornets, well, here's what I like. They get to be part of an NBA first that is a positive for them in the acquisition of Reggie Jackson and second-round picks and Josh Green, instead of oftentimes this franchise, unfortunately, is part of NBA first that aren't necessarily very positive.
That's right. Also, as we mentioned, Bryce, JT Thor, no more with the Hornets. Also, the team released Poku, no longer on the team. Davis Bertans, no longer on the team, getting waived while he was playing for Team Latvia, going to the Olympics, and then saying, I don't really care afterwards, being interviewed. So,
which, again, a few people were like, whatever about that. It's like, like if you get waived by a team, I can give you a little bit of leeway to be hurt by that.
That's correct.
And then same thing with Kelly Oubre, saying some hurtful things. Like he wanted to be here. We hurt people. We have to understand that actually is a sign that they wanted to be here and were rejected. Now, I do hope that at some point, like a Bryce McGowens or somebody will filter out of this organization and say, no, that's actually a really well-run organization. I enjoyed my time here, but I'm excited about my new opportunity. But that has to happen because you have a functional organization that treats people correctly. And I think we have one now, and I'm excited about that happening in the future. But I can understand Davis being hurt.
Reggie Jackson isn't the only former Hornet that the Hornets traded for again, and I'll use former Hornet with Reggie.
Former.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
They actually traded for Devontae Graham too,
Whoa,
Doug.
Hey,
yes.
Hey, buddy.
You talk about a wild ride for 30 seconds reading the first half of this tweet. I was like, goodness gracious, did they bring him on home? But really, they did not. The Hornets traded for Devontae Graham and a second-round pick. Then they would waive Devontae Graham. All they wanted was the second rounder. So Mitch Kupchak is still somewhere in that building. So they trade for Graham, and it was the Spurs just trying to offload money so they could go out and they could get some of these other guys through free agency, and even I believe in the Spurs trade, in the DeRozan trade, I believe that had something to do with DeRozan going to Sacramento. The Spurs get the pick swap, which was valuable with Sacramento. But anyways, so Devontae not on the team. Reggie Jackson still is. He hadn't gotten waived yet.
Well, I was just about to ask you that because I know we're going to get to some other questions, but just really quickly, is Reggie Jackson going to play for the Hornets this season?
It feels like maybe a later candidate to then go seek a contender somewhere. But I don't know. I think the possibility rises, obviously, as we go on without him.
I'm going to look at Reggie's shooting now because if they need it, if he shot well the previous season, I mean, I'm not like totally, Sure. I think
it's fine.
I'm not as versed on Reggie because I guess I assumed that they were just bringing him on as part of this whole Devontae Graham-ish thing of like, we're going to take on your bad money, give us picks, and then we see you later. But they've done that with Devontae. They haven't done that with Reggie Jackson. And last season for Denver, he shot 36% from 3. The previous couple of seasons, not so great. But like if he can give you a little bit of shooting and ball handling behind LaMelo Ball, who you might be worried about injury-wise, I mean, and if he plays well in like a pseudo 6 or 7 man role, then okay, well, you might be able to get some trade value for him to get even more assets at the trade deadline.
I like it. I like it, and we'll see if that happens. Let's go very quickly through some rapid fire. We have to stay true to this. It has to be rapid fire. Rapid fire free agent questions. most surprised player you saw waived by the Hornets?
Pokashevsky, because there is, he can shoot. He's a big. They don't have many of those guys. I know he's kind of a pseudo big because, he's a string bean, but that was surprising to me because it wouldn't have cost them that much to retain him. Davis, I think obviously they tried to move that deal and it wasn't movable. So that just saves them a bunch of money. Bryce, we've already talked about. So Poku for me.
Yeah, it's not like it's crazy surprising, right? But Poku would be my answer as well. And that really comes down to not having a lot of big dudes. If you look at the front court depth, power forward specifically, we're looking at, guys with the ability to play that position. Grant Williams, Miles Bridges, Tidjane Salaun, and who else? Look at the payroll. It is bleak there. So maybe that's the reason that you would keep Poku. Least surprised player, or least surprised you were to see a player waived. Who was that?
Davis, because the contract, like they were not going to pay that guy $17 million. And it wasn't even about that would have put them into an apron. It was just like for the contributions, he wasn't going to contribute that much unless there was a series of injuries. Mm-hmm. And, it's not like this is Boston or Miami that's like really racking it in at the turnstiles. So yeah, I was the least surprised to see. I was, I think, disappointed that they couldn't move that deal in some way because it felt like a contract because of the stipulations that could have helped the team move off of another bad contract, but they just couldn't do it. And so, but that's the least surprising for sure.
I'll go JT. I just felt like it was about to be. We never had him in our future plans, and I know that hurts. Maybe we can have that as the bridge to this next question. Is JT Thor the saddest you were to see a player leave this team?
Yeah, because I believed in it, and when you believe in something so strongly, and it doesn't work out, it makes you second guess yourself. And so I would like to make JT's release about me. That I start to second guess myself a little bit. What was I not seeing? What was I was trying to watch, and maybe I missed some things because I got some rose-colored glasses on about JT Thor, but because I saw I'll tell you what I saw. I mean, I saw a guy that the Raptors often draft and turn into stars in the league, and I continue to want the Hornets.
Oh, you thought he was going to be Chris Boucher?
Yeah, no, I do. Totally. That's the name, Chris Boucher, for sure. Like a guy that is, in the 6'7" to 6'9" range, long wingspan, and can be a 3-and-D guy. I mean, I think they are still searching in the wilderness for that player, but that was not what JT Thor became. Also, I mean, it hurt my T-shirt sales for sure.
Yeah, that would. I mean, if JT hits, then we are filthy rich. Saddest for me, but I think it's a tie between Drew Pember. It was a fun week.
Do you remember?
I do. I remember the one flush that he had out of the 4 field goal attempts in just a little bit of time against Team China. I'll always have that. And then also, I'm just going to go ahead and say James Najee because I don't even know what's up with that guy anymore. He didn't want to get drafted by the Hornets. He's not anywhere in their plans right now. I don't think we saw anything official as to them not having the rights to his NBA playing time. I don't even know what's going on. Does anybody know what's up with Najee? Does anybody know if he is still technically a Hornet if he were to play in the NBA? Because
he's hanging out with Kubica. It's Najee and Kubica in this mysterious zone of Hornets that may not be Hornets or may be Hornets. We don't know.
Okay. Well, those are the questions we'll ask. Did you have one more question pertaining to the free agents, or are we done?
Are we done? I think that's the question. Are the Hornets done with free agency? Do you think they make any kind of additional ad?
Give me another power forward. I need somebody, Doug. It's thin. If you are relying, right? You could start the 2 starting lineups that you could roll out with to begin is Josh Green 2, Brandon Miller 3, Miles Bridges 4, or the other one is Brandon Miller 2, Miles Bridges 3, Grant Williams 4. So those are the 2 lineups you could roll with. In one scenario, you have one bench guy that you can go to at the power forward spot. So give me a big dude. I need somebody if you're 6'7", then I need some thickness. I just need you really to be 6'8" or above and be able to play the 4 spot. Give Mark Williams some help. Give Miles Bridges, Grant Williams some help. But that's what I want.
Yeah, and things are thin right now. I mean, a lot of those power forwards have been have already found new teams. But yeah, I think, and then we're like turning guys into power forwards that I don't think are really power forwards. But so yeah, I think the Hornets will have to maybe look within the summer league roster to see, if you can turn.
Mogi?
I mean, I think, Jake Stevens is definitely a center. Like, he has concrete blocks for feet. Like, he is not, you are not putting him on a power forward under any circumstances. But Mogi, if he's healthy, I'm crossing my face. I haven't heard anything. I'm going to text Sam Purley right now and give me a Mogi update. Is the guy playing or what? Because I think that is a guy that you could play at either of those positions for moments.
Okay. That'll do it for Locked On Hornets. Thanks for making us your first listen. Make your second listen Locked On Fantasy Basketball, and then make your third listen. Yes, I want to dictate your whole listening day. I have Charles Lee on today. So no Wes. It'll just be me, Charles Lee, hanging out on WFNZ.
What are you going to ask him?
I don't know.
No, tease me.
12:30. He's going to be hopping on.
Ask him about Mogi. Get a Mogi update.
It'll basically be a Drew Pember Mogi conversation. Why? That's actually the whole interview.
The ratings. I can see the ratings now going through the roof.
Welcome Charles Lee to the Wes and Walker show. So, Coach Lee, Drew Pember, why? Okay, that'll do it for Charles Lee. That's how the interview is going to go. But still, you should listen to it anywhere you get your podcast. You can catch that also when we upload it as well. Even if you can't catch it 12:30, we're still uploading it to Apple, Spotify, all that stuff. As we are here with Locked On Hornets. Also check out Doug's Substack, everyhornetsboxscore.com. And then listen to me, again, WFNZ, especially at 12:30 today. And we will be going from 12 to 3 p.m. Have a great rest of your day. Have a great weekend. We'll be back with you tomorrow. Monday. We'll be back with you Monday. Oh.